In the industry, we often talk about how to get product and content creators to work with a more global mindset. At the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Localization Project Manager Gemma Ortiz believes that internationalization testing, including pseudo-localization, has created greater opportunities to collaborate with product and content creators. And I'll now turn the time over to Gemma so she can tell us about it.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you for your kind words, and especially thank you to GALA for allowing me to be here today. While everything is loading, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Spain. I live in Vineyard, Utah. If you know where exactly that is, I'll give you kudo points or brownie points, like my kids say. This is my family. My 3 kids from Ethiopia, my husband from Mexico, and me from Spain. And if we can make it work every day, believe me, anybody can. Also, a little bit of my background. I have attended Utah State, Ohio State, as well as taught in these different universities. A little bit about the company I work for, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We are in 160 countries represented. We have our church logo in about 110, over 110 languages, and every day keeps on growing. And we do quite a few languages of interpretation constantly, as well as translation. Also, as many of us know, the languages are not bound to one single country or one type of users. We are constantly experiencing the comments of, well, this is for English, languages will come later. And for the last 10 years, I've been working with internationalization and localization for my company and trying to change that mentality. Let me tell you, pretty standard, what we do is testing methods use, internationalization testing for us is testing methods to make sure that our software or websites or apps, for that matter, are ready to go into languages. The revolution that we have created with our pseudo localization is that we have created environments in which we can test prior to going into languages if the site, the software, or the app is ready for language adaptation. We have done it in several instances in parallel, and in some cases in simultaneous version. Simultaneous is a little bit more challenging because you can't see one instance compared to the other instance, but we've done it. Now, some of the tools and processes that we use for internationalization, the tools, and kudos to the several companies that have partnered with us, like SDL World Server and Trados, Brightspot, Lingopore, Globalizer. They've been troopers. They've worked with us in many aspects. The process is pretty simple. We extract all the files pertaining to the app strings, the website, or the software, and we send it through a pseudo process designed through SDL Trados. We import the files back into the website, and we do an evaluation. And the evaluation, we do kind of like a round table with several roles that I'll be talking about in a moment. And when we find the bugs, we send them back to the drawing table. So most of the bugs are caught pre-translation, and once that we have the solution, everything is wiped out, and we redo it or if the bugs were simple enough, we just let it be and release it once that the bugs have been verified that they are um, fixed. The key to our success has been creating a community and an environment of open collaboration. These are some of the roles that we invite to the roundtable, or internationalization and localization engineers, or UX designers, developers, and solution managers, uh, product managers, project managers, and the different production teams from translation to publication. Each role is obviously looking for certain adaptation when the pseudo localization comes back. So their input is crucial. Some of the key internationalization design issues that we have found recurrent and that we always keep in mind is the text expansion. Can we expand to meet the necessity of languages? Has the strings being all caps, and some languages don't accept that pretty well. So we kind of negotiate that on a language base. Character-based languages, those languages that are not Roman alphabet, do we have the support to display those characters, right? Right to left languages, obviously they display text different to us. If there are scenes that are hard-coded and will require translation, we'll look for those. Are your dates and measurements capable of accepting localization? And of course, oh, my favorite one, string concatenation. And please don't ask me to say that word again. Some of the pre-internationalization testing parameters that we have designed include a test lane. Do we have a way to see the site before it gets published? Are we just translating blindly and then it gets published and then we find all the errors? So we've been able to prevent some of them by creating a preview environment or a staging environment prior to publishing, where we not only can have translators come to a simple WYSIWYG to edit minor mistakes or typos or even localization changes, but we also stage the content. If you notice on the right, it's on the left is the live side, and you see a girl holding a medallion on her neck. And on the left, excuse me, on the right, you see the same image down below with a red icon above it. That means that it hasn't been published, but we're staging it to be moved down. That helps us kind of speed up the process of publication for languages. This is what it looks like. So we use SDL World Server, and most of our translators translate in SDL Trados, and they extract the files, they put them in their Workbench desktop version, and they do the translation. Then they import the files, and now we offer a simple preview for them to see what it looks like. In this case, you can see our pseudo that has ugliness to it. So if you speak Spanish, you'll see that there's random words here and there. Once in a while, they make sense, but not very often. And we test if it can be expanded, if it's not expanding, and so forth. Here's two streams on the online Workbench. Okay, once that it goes to the website, it's when we do a roundtable with everybody else, and we start looking at code. We start looking at what's happening behind the scenes and why is this not working out if something goes wrong. In many cases, once that we approve the pseudo localization or the pseudo testing results, then we go into languages quite easily and simple. Of course, we have to allow for translation to happen, but then we have a pretty similar experience for all languages, from the English to the different languages. And it's a great opportunity to collaborate with everyone. We've talked about text expansion when in these two cases that I show here many years ago, the menus showed up all scrambled together in German for the mere reason that the programmers didn't account for the text expansion. By collaborating with them, we were not only able to change that behavior, but also suggest, you know, a pop-up menu. We found out that the word in memories by itself, in German as translated, meant in that case emergency, and not what we wanted, memories, like remembering things and adding to your story. So by talking to the developers about the issue we were encountering before lunch, they were able to have the menus pop up as you hover over the word that changed the meaning of what it was. The World Relief Society, one of the organizations that we have in our church, in German was way long. We've moved that from being left navigation title that wrapped around 4 times to being the title of the page and taking it out of the navigation. The collaboration has created a little bit of a revolution. At the beginning, we were told here is the text translated. And when we asked questions, they said, well, just translate it. Isn't that what you do? To now, after 10 years of doing that, it has created the philosophy or the culture in our company of if we can avoid the issues to start with, we want to engage you right away. So we've been able to enable languages from the moment that English enters into design by simply asking, what about languages? For example, in this two video clips that you see here, we encounter a major cultural problem. If you're familiar with the Chinese culture, the representation of the yellow umbrella is a form of protest. And this video was translated into Chinese. So in the video is called Peace in Christ, and you're more than welcome to find it in YouTube. In the midst of the storm, Christ is represented by a yellow umbrella, where, you know, the family is in the midst of the rain and getting wet. All of a sudden, they have a yellow umbrella, and it brings hope, and the sun comes up. In the Chinese culture, we added images from other videos that we have called the Bible video collection, that where Christ is helping people. Reactive localization is not part of is when we are not part of the design. And the main problem is that we have to fix the problem per language. And it becomes pretty fast, pretty expensive. Some of the resources that we have created for collaboration and that we use in external resources too is, like, for example, stat counters, webinars, and different publications that help drive our point of internationalization. But we have also created two internally. One is of public domain, which is the Foundry, and the other one is internal to us, which is an internationalization library. This is our library. It explains to other departments and groups that we collaborate with what is internationalization and why you should care. It addresses the topic from the product manager and the project manager, designer, and developer stand. And we hold meetings with them as needed. The Foundry is kind of for internationalization and standardization for all languages. If you want to go into a specific language, you need to be aware of these issues. And this one is public domain. For example, with the language of Amharic, we do have a set of fonts that are internal to us that we call Ensign. And we have the standard worldwide that we compare to. Are we within standards? Are we not? Is this acceptable for this language or not? So we've created a library that is available for all. The revolution of the digital distribution for us started in 2010. Between 2010 to 2011, we had 10 languages in this menu. Between 2012 to 2015, we added 30 more. In 2016, we were in 115 languages, and today we are in 134 languages, including right to left. Our main website, churchofjesuschrist.org, features content in several languages for each one of our main pages. Interestingly enough, this site has been ranked for 3 years in the top 25 of best global websites. This year we're number 14. The first year we were ranked, we were number 4 in 2018. Or different products present different challenges. Gospel Library is one that has still much more to work that we can do with it, and we are constantly improving. But we have learned how to move languages through, or the strings for the app through Lingopore Globalizer. And it has allowed us to just process the difference, what has changed or what has been added. And it has really speed up our process. Also in this app, we have enabled outside software that allows the user to hear their language. Command to Christ is another site that adds even more complexity as we localize the URLs and the SEO per language. If you notice on the top of the page, you will see the name of the site in language from Venir a Cristo to Vindi a Cristo, and I'm not going to attempt French. The case study of Bible videos, that was an English-centric website, took us years to finally move it into more languages. We even went and created collections in our YouTube channels to be able to put the languages out. But finally, we have it in 10 languages, and the videos are all collected in there. But our YouTube collection even serves more languages. Quickly, what about apps? Because we do localization for apps, for websites and software. And the first question that comes to mind is, should you do Android or Apple? And that depends which market you want to go. So our audience, we have a captive audience, and these products are available, the majority of them for public use. But we have total users of 51% iOS versus 49 Android. But if you go outside of the United States and Japan, look at this. English is 62 versus 38 Android, but French is 26% iOS versus 74 Android. So it depends which language and which market you want to serve. In a recent event that we had on February 20th called Friend to Friend, we did not only enable our pseudo localization to help us go faster, we also enable it in our app, an app that we designed. So the app that we designed actually combined 4 different apps. And these 4 different, 3 apps in additional development. These 3 apps were acquired by the church, probably by the end of January, and we launched this on February 20th. The localization of the strings took 5 days. And we were able to, from start to finish, from being told, hey, we have to do this by next week, to getting it into our systems, in the Lingopore Globalizer, and out to our translators and getting it back 5 days. It was amazing. But on the website, we find that we were a little bit broken by design. The English show the big banner at the beginning of our events. The languages show this little banner of see what's going on. We're still missing the top banner. When this site was created, it was like languages will come back. Sometimes we're surprised by design. We test everything, and all of a sudden we find that our websites break because somebody has changed the destination of our publications. And we have to go back and collaborate with them. So it's often not a surprise for us that is broken by design, but that is what happens. And now, before you ask any question, I have a poll for you. Let's see what you have to say. Where are you catching most of your localization bugs? Is it user feedback? Is it during localization testing, internationalization testing with real-time developer tools, or QA testing during development? So I'll give you a few seconds to answer that poll, and then the time is yours to ask questions, or you can start asking questions, and then we'll look at the results.
Yes, after you've submitted your response to the poll, there's still time for you to submit questions in the Q&A button there.
That
And
is
we have the
pretty
results.
cool. So 39% of you are finding it during localization testing. That means that you're doing quite a bit of evangelization there, to use religious terms, but that is fantastic. User feedback usually becomes pretty expensive. So what are some of your questions for me?
Okay, first question. Everyone knows it can be difficult to get buy-in and participation from other departments. How are you convincing product managers, developers, and designers to participate in these internationalization roundtables? Like that on that slide that's in reference to the slide where you mentioned all the different roles that are participating in those internationalization roundtables you have.
So one of the main ways that we have been able to convince people is by word of mouth, by having projects go pretty quickly and pretty smooth, and them sharing with peers, saying, "Hey, we got this project through translation in 5 days, and it worked." Uh, then they come to us and they normally say, "How do you get it to work?" Other times we've been in meetings, in product meetings, where we said, hey, if we do pseudo localization on this as soon as English is ready to come out of development, we can prevent a lot of issues that will be very costly through back and forth with engineers. And they've seen the benefit of or involvement early enough. I've been doing this for 10 years, so once in a while I get the comment that I've been told that if you don't approve, it doesn't go. So really, when you have success, really be open about it and show how the success has impacted the budget of the project and how you can express the success also by adoption of the product. I hope that answered your question.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Cornelia Sittel, and I'm sorry if I pronounced her name wrong. She wants to know who runs the pseudo localization. Is it a localization manager or developers after each feature is ready to go into a release branch?
So normally we run it at the localization manager, but we depend on the collaboration with developers. So when we start talking about what localization means and everything, I always ask, who is the developer? Obviously, we have a pool of developers internally that I've got to know at a personal level. And usually it's pretty easy when we reach out to them and say, hey, we heard that you're working on this. Um, how can we help? How can we become a trusted partner for you and a source of knowledge? So usually, yeah, we run it.
Okay, and a follow-up question from Cornelia. Do you have only one locale for pseudo-localization or several? And she adds, one script cannot cover all possible problems, in my humble opinion.
You're right. One script doesn't cover all the problems. We only use one locale, but we don't use that locale uniqueness for the language. We throw multiple characters into it that have nothing to do with Spanish. And with Trados, we just use their script to run pseudo with SDL Trados with to run the pseudo batch. And we add different parameters, but we do randomize it. And then when it comes out is when we start looking at, from the point of view of languages, what are our biggest challenges? We make sure the fonts are well defined and they are using standards. We also make sure that all the locales are enabled on the website. And we also work directly with the publishers to make sure every aspect of language localization is addressed before it comes to us. So it seems like we do one locale, but we actually, in that pseudo locale, we do call it Spanish just because everybody comes to us with the requirement for Spanish and Portuguese almost every time, but we test many themes.
Great. I'm going to jump to another follow-up question from Cornelia because it is still related to the technicalities of your
I like
the
Cornelia.
specific options that that you're choosing. She also wants to know, does your pseudo-localization also cover text contraction? For example, in Asian languages, spaces are taken out, and while in Romance and Germanic languages can expand up to 30%, Chinese shrinks substantially, for example, and that can mess up the layout.
Yes. So I guess 10 years of doing this in the industry has really uh, provided advocates. So many of the developers have developed a standard by which all of them come in, and especially it addresses, shorter languages versus longer languages versus, different characters. All that is laid out in our Foundry.
Okay,
But great
great.
question, by the way.
Yeah, let's see. We have time for one, maybe two more, but let's go with this one first. How is your organization supporting you in your role to carry out internationalization testing?
If you asked me that question 9 years ago, I would say it's been a punching bag. I put my gloves on and I go to bat. But now it has been greatly supported because many of the departments that we serve in the organization have um, developed some type of trust with us on what we can offer to them and how well we can offer it. It is key to implementation of sites in languages that the organization is fully supportive. At the beginning, we were catching a lot of things at the end where it became pretty costly. Now they are very upfront, and it has become a requirement for everything that we do brand new.
Excellent. It's always great to hear about those transformations because I know a lot of people are battling with that and trying to get better collaboration with other departments and actually being allowed to and encouraged to get involved early on. So
Yeah,
thank you very much for your presentation, Kemma, and thank you everyone who's attended. I
thank
hope you
you.
enjoy the rest of the conference.